good morning, and welcome to the Nashville Daily Podcast. I am your co-host, Stuart Deming, and today's episode is brought to you by XPLR If you want to learn the history of Nashville, Tennessee, come take a walking tour with us. We have the Nashville History Walking Tour that's available on our website, XPLRtours.com. You can use the code ND10 to take 10% off of your order today, and that's specifically for the Nashville History Walking Tour. And we're going to be introducing a waterfall tour that we're super excited for. We will be announcing that waterfall tour here very shortly. Aaron, did you know that today is Tennessee Statehood Day?
Yes, because you told me earlier.
I told you very early this morning. So happy birthday, Tennessee.
We had to do the math to see, okay, I remember 2 years ago, Tennessee did their 225th birthday push.
Yep.
Where they did like a post every day. They made a new Instagram account, did like a post every day for a year regarding Tennessee's history. So I believe this makes it its 227th year as a state.
So Tennessee became the 16th state in 1796. So if you're in Tennessee, say happy birthday to the state.
Just look around anywhere and say happy birthday to the state. Yesterday, we had Freddie O'Connell on the podcast, a mayoral candidate. Today, we are also happy to introduce another mayoral candidate. He is the former COO of AllianceBernstein, and like I said, a mayoral candidate for the city of Nashville. Jim Gingrich, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
It's great to be here.
Jim, go ahead and tell us who you are and why you're running for mayor.
I am the former COO of AllianceBernstein. I retired at the end of 2020, thinking I would be retired for the rest of my life. So it is a very good question. Why am I running for mayor? I just think that we are at such a critical juncture here in the city, and I care so much about Nashville and the people in it that I felt that we needed to start to confront some of the challenges that we have as a city, and I didn't see anybody else who was prepared to do it.
Okay, could you go into detail into some of those challenges that we're facing as a city?
Sure. As I tell people, if you get in your car and you don't know where you're going, you're going to burn a lot of gas, and you may not like where you end up.
Mm-hmm.
And in Nashville, we are growing as a city, but we're growing without a plan, and that is causing a whole series of issues, from what it costs to live here, to how our neighborhoods are changing, to rising crime, underfunded schools, and us just being stuck in traffic a whole lot more than we might like.
So literally burning the gas.
Literally burning the gas, absolutely.
Can you talk a little bit more about your transition from New York to Nashville?
Personally,
just personally.
Well, look, I grew up in the Midwest. I was raised and I was born in Kansas City. Went to high school there.
Oh, very cool. Are you a Chiefs fan, Jayhawks fan? Where do you line up with that?
It is hard. I do have to say I have a warm place in my heart for Patrick Mahomes,
as most people do. Yeah.
I do. Still love, but I love the Titans too. So I've been very conflicted at times. So I had never imagined in my life that I would end up living in a place like New York. But for me, it's good to be back in a smaller town where you know your neighbors and people are warm and friendly.
Do you liken Nashville to Kansas City at all? Do you see similarities there as far as the size and the maybe population and things, or do you have any similarities that you see?
There are similarities, although I think again Nashville. The people in Nashville are so unique. We're crazy friendly. We're warm. We care not just about our neighbors, but about the community broadly and about the future of the city in a way that I have never seen before.
So a lot different than New York.
New Yorkers are super passionate about New York too.
So your transition from New York to Nashville, did it happen in that simultaneous time from AllianceBernstein's transition from New York to Nashville?
Yeah, I was one of the first folks here.
Okay.
I always believe in you lead from the front.
Yeah, and just before the show, Stuart was asking about the selection process of AllianceBernstein to Nashville. What was that like trying to decide where a company will go? I mean, this is just such a big transition. What was that like, and what were the things that made you put the feet in the ground? I know that you're the deciding vote. So what made you plant your feet in the dirt and choose Nashville as opposed to some of the other cities that were in the process of being decided on?
Good question. We started with 30 cities. There are a lot of great cities in the U.S. We narrowed it down, as you would expect, to 5, and then ultimately chose Nashville. There is, AllianceBernstein is a research-based firm, so as you might expect, there is a lot of analytical work that went into that decision. As an example, we mapped out within Nashville the likely places that people would be living and what their daily commute would look like versus the daily commute that they had in New York. That said, by the time you get to the end, there are a lot of qualitative factors that come into play, and I think, as I said earlier, the people who live in Nashville, whether or not you're leading a business or just the average person, it is such a unique city in terms of how people care about the future of the city, how they care about their neighbors. I certainly benefited from that from the day I arrived, as did many of our employees, and it is something that I hope we never, ever lose.
Yeah, I'm curious if that time of finding Nashville, looking at all its qualities, you probably saw the good and the bad when evaluating a city, especially if you're doing it off of data that you can look at. Is that how early did you see that, hey, there are some, Nashville's great, there are some things that may need fixing? Is that when could you see it that early?
Every city has its pros and cons.
Yeah.
Some of the things that we saw as challenges for Nashville, we still have. On the day that we announced the move to Nashville was the day after the transit referendum. And so we knew going in that this was a challenge that Nashville had had to face. I think some other things that concerned us that remain challenges are the level of violent crime in the city. Our level of violent crime is well above cities that I would consider to be peer cities. And then
it's only increased in the last 6 months to the last year.
Well, I think a lot of these issues have become more challenging over the last several years.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But these things have roots that go back quite a bit of time. I mean, if you go back, many of the issues that we're talking about today, we were talking about for a decade or more.
Yeah.
You go back and look at the debates of 2015. We were talking about them then. I think the frustrating part in a lot of cases is that we haven't made progress. If anything, we've slipped back.
Mm-hmm. I think something interesting. One of the things I know we're supposed to ask you questions and figure out your positions, but we've watched all the we've done our we've watched all the game film. But one thing that I really appreciate that you've said that nobody else has said, and sorry for the language, we've done so many damn studies in this city that nothing has been done for, or I shouldn't say nothing, but generally not enough has been done. I know you that's one of the things you said. I was like, fine, somebody else is saying it. Like, we've been saying it here
for years.
But so many studies are done, and I'm like, who's doing all these studies and making all this fantastic money doing all these studies, and they're just sitting there in a drawer. So can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, again, we touched on this issue of congestion in the city. We have done multiple transit studies.
Yeah.
And I think we all look around and go, well, where's the beef? We've done multiple studies on affordable housing, and we ask, where's the beef? And I understand that some of these are tough decisions that require some degree of political courage, but the fact is that we have kicked the can. Our leadership has kicked the can over and over again, and as these issues, and just making the issues more expensive and more difficult to resolve, we've kicked the can multiple times on questions of infrastructure that now become increasingly problematic and expensive to deal with. And you just can't keep doing that. You're already seeing it impinge on our quality of life. Areas of the city where you have flooding that you never used to have flooding before. This is just going to get worse if we don't have leadership in place that is willing to take these challenges on.
So what was the biggest thing being in the position that you were in that you learned about yourself, and then how are you going to take that skill set and apply it to the plan of Nashville that you have?
Well, Metro is, our city government is a very large organization.
It is. It is the third largest employer. I think it's
in the state.
It's Vanderbilt, Tennessee, and then Metro government.
Yeah, I mean, plus or minus, Metro itself is roughly 8,500 employees, and a in this next fiscal year will be a $3.3 billion budget, and the budget that's shortly to be approved.
Because we need to start the budget. Was it July 1st?
Yep. So we'll soon be talking about it as our current budget in 30 days' time. And then of course you have MNPS, which is quite large as well. In my former life, I was overseeing an organization of thousands of people. They happen to be located in 25 countries, not one county, in a budget that also was measured in the billions of dollars. So I think that to be able to tackle the tough challenges that we have in front of us, we also need to ensure that we have a city government that is motivated and aligned and operating at peak effectiveness and efficiency, and that we are spending our money wisely and getting the most for our tax dollars. And that is something that, if I think about, that is something I have done. And nobody else in the race can say
you're the only
can
candidate.
say that they've actually overseen anything of any size.
Yeah, you're the only candidate that has this expertise.
And I would say, if you say, why did I end up in that position, back to this idea that we have had study after study, you don't end up in that position by kicking the can. You end up in that position by actually showing over a very long career that you can make things happen and get things done.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. Do you think that that experience of being in the, or I should say, how does that experience in the private sector really translate when you get over to the public sector? There's obviously going to be a lot of things that are extremely different. The things that you're like, can we change this? They're like, no. But what do you think is the biggest advantage of that private sector experience with that dollar amount that you are looking forward to if you're elected the next mayor, of bringing to the national public sector?
I think I would see it in two ways. Business isn't government, government isn't business, but people are people. And if I just start with our city employees, they work their butts off. They want to go home every day feeling like they have accomplished something. That is the same whether or not you are in the private sector or the public sector. The job of the leader is to make sure that people feel that they understand where North is, that they feel valued and listened to, that we have alignment across the organization, that we're not siloed, that the left hand is talking to the right hand, and we understand what we're seeking to accomplish. That is true in any large organization, and getting people excited about what's possible is true in any organization. And look, I would say the same for a city as well. The job of the mayor, particularly today, is to show the people of Nashville that we can take the steps that will enhance their quality of life in the future, that tomorrow is going to be better than today. And I firmly believe we have the resources to do it. Nashville's a special city, but building that excitement is a big part of what you are trying to do in any leadership role.
So with that in mind, before the show, you talked about some of the challenges that Nashville's going through. What are some of the challenges that you foresee Nashville going through over the next 2 to 5 years? And I know
in some ways,
in
some ways, I do think you have to address the root issue, which is it is fantastic to grow, but we need to be growing with a purpose and a plan. One that at the center of it is let's talk about the people of Nashville and their quality of life. The challenge in some of the issues that we talked about is you have to understand that they are all connected. We know we have a congestion problem in the city. 90% of our population growth in the region in the last 5 years has been in the counties that surround Davidson County. So why is that? Because a lot of those folks are then, in turn, commuting into Nashville. Yep. Well, that might be that I couldn't afford to live in Davidson County. It might be that, for whatever reason, I wanted my kid in a Wilson County school. So all of a sudden, education is connected to affordability, which is connected to our congestion issue. So the idea that we can pick and choose any particular area to focus on, you're just not going to address the full quality of life issues that affect people.
Yep.
And you have to think about this in the context of what is the root issue, which is we need a plan to grow Nashville in a way that benefits the people who call Nashville home.
Yeah, we talked about this when we see big company announcements like AllianceBernstein's announcements, when Amazon is making their announcements, when Oracle's making their announcements, we talked about that exact same thing, because what the chamber is hoping and what the Nashville is hoping is that, okay, that is an additional 800 families or so moving into the Nashville core, but that's not the reality. You're exactly right. The reality is, it could be one of those things. They don't want to deal with the crime of the city. They don't want to put their kids in public school, and so they're moving out to those surrounding counties, even for those promised jobs that Nashville's looking at their goal and saying we need 2,000 more tech jobs in the next 3 years, and because that will have an increased amount on the taxes that we bring in and everything. But if they don't live in the county, all that is null and void.
Well, I would say a couple things. I mean, one is no company, including AllianceBernstein, puts their operations here if they don't believe there is fantastic talent in Middle Tennessee.
Sure,
and believes that the large percentage of the people that they are going to employ are based here. I mean, that was certainly the case in AllianceBernstein. The large majority of jobs that we hired for were from people who were already resident here in Middle Tennessee.
Cool.
That said, you have to, as a city, deal with the issues that come when you grow. And growth is not bad or good. Growth is good. I mean, it's a good problem. It creates, it funds resources that can be used to better the lives of people who live here. I think one of but you got to do the right things. And I think one of the head scratchers, if you look at our city today, is that our city government with this new budget will be spending 70% more per resident than we spent 10 years ago.
Yeah, well, that's pretty wild.
And I think a lot of folks look around and say, wait a second, what am I getting?
Right, because the people are probably saying, well, the crime didn't go down with that extra spending. There are more potholes on the road with that extra spending. The traffic has gotten worse with that extra spending. So you're right. People are looking around and they're going, well, if we spent more, I should be getting more of that return.
Yeah, it shouldn't be. The bargain shouldn't be pay more, get less.
Yeah.
Well, could you give me a brief breakdown of your plan?
Well, look, I think I would say it in brief is we need to have a well thought out plan for how do we grow. And how do we do it in a way that prioritizes the people who live in Nashville, not political insiders, not the folks with influence, but how do we actually benefit the people who live here? There is a reason why in, say, for example, the most recent Vanderbilt poll, we have flipped from where we were 5 years ago, where 5 years ago people were saying the city was going in the right direction. Now folks are saying it's going in the wrong direction. And that is because that is not just a mood. Many people are tangibly worse off today than they were 5 years ago for whatever reason that they talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to have that plan, and that plan has to address affordable housing. It has to address schools. It has to address crime. It has to address infrastructure. It has to address all of the issues that impact our daily lives. And you have to be able to use our tax dollars in a very thoughtful way, as well as how do we bring into the equation more effectively the private sector.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the we'll do kind of one last policy question, then we'll go to some fun stuff, hobbies, food, all of that stuff. One of the splits between and this is like one of the only major splits between a lot of the candidates is their position on the stadium. Can you talk about your position? We don't have a buzzer, we don't have a timer or anything like that. On your position of the stadium, how it's being financed, you have expressed, similar with, I think, Freddie and one other person, that you're against the voting of the stadium. But like I think Freddie and Sharon are the only ones who've actually put a vote on the record kind of thing. Can you tell me your position on the new stadium and what your thoughts are now that it's been approved?
Well, I would actually disagree in terms of who's put a vote because we have a couple of state senators that also were very involved.
That's fair.
And I think every candidate has been asked what their point of view is.
Yes.
So last July, before I was a candidate, I wrote a letter to council, and I also published an op-ed in the Tennessean because of my concern around what seemed to be the parameters of the deal. And I was arguing to the council, here's a set of things that I think you should be doing now so that you get in front of this before it is presented to you. So my concerns at the time, and I mean, look, at this point, the deal is done.
Right.
But my concerns at the time were I think I would express it in a couple of different ways. One is new stadiums create significant economic value for the owner of that football team. There have been 8 stadiums constructed in the last 15 years, and we know what that has done to the value of those teams. The value of those teams has grown at nearly twice the rate of the teams that didn't have a new stadium, which makes sense because you get new revenue streams.
Right. The return is much better.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're going to have a negotiation, step one is to understand
the return.
The return for the other side, right? Yeah. I mean, if you're going to go to the car dealer and buy a new car, I would suggest go online and figure out what the margin is on that car and figure out what other people are paying for it.
Right.
So Nashville today is not the same city of Nashville of 1996 when we were negotiating with that team back in 1996. Today, we are a vibrant, growing city. We have a robust tourist and hospitality industry. We enthusiastically support 4 professional sports teams.
Yeah.
We are at the top of the list for Major League Baseball for a new team. So you can look at the NFL draft. The point is that we are in a very different negotiating position than we were.
So you're saying no matter how much the Adams family said, hey, we could move to another city, they probably weren't going to.
I just think we are in a very different negotiating position. And when you talk about moving a team, what the most recent transaction was, which was, and it's probably a good proxy. It was the Raiders being lured to Las Vegas by what the state of Nevada and Las Vegas were willing to do, which was about 60% of what this final deal was. Again, you may like the house on the street, but that doesn't mean you're going to pay twice what every other house is sold for.
Yep.
So bottom line was, look, I love the Titans. I as I said in I think the headline of the op-ed, we should have a fair deal, not a raw deal. A new stadium can be great for the city, but in my view, we were overpaying.
Yeah. Okay, so we were overpaying, even though. So the flip side of that coin is we saved a buku bucks in the general budget for Nashville. Did we end up? Did we still? Do you think at the end of the day, everything? How did we do on a scale of like 1 to 10 with that? And what do you think of the savings on the general budget side of things?
Look, my car may be totally on blocks when I walk into the car dealer, but that shouldn't mean I negotiate any less hard. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe it's a 3. I'm not saying that there isn't a benefit to or potential benefit to Nashville.
Right.
But any negotiation, it's about we are creating economic wealth for all concerned, and what is the appropriate way to divide that wealth.
Yeah.
I think the people negotiating on the side of the Titans did what they should do, which is they're looking to maximize the wealth of that owner. And the person on the other side of the table has to have the people of Nashville first and foremost in their minds.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the possibility of a baseball team coming here. Are you in support of a new stadium for a baseball team?
Well, what's interesting is as far as I understand, is that the people who are trying to bring baseball,
it's all private funded.
It's going to be all privately funded.
Yep. Which is a whole different story, and we've been talking about that for years. Mm-hmm. Currently, right now, they're doing a land survey and study at TSU, and that's most likely going to be the property. I don't think the new stadium, if we get a baseball stadium, I don't think that's going to be in the East Bank. What are your thoughts?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I haven't seen all the work. I know that they've been looking at a number of sites. Yep. I think the thing that we just pointed out, though, that is most important is the idea that it would be privately funded.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which
is that the first stadium in the country that would be completely privately funded?
Or are you talking about baseball?
For baseball?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly. In the case of football, there have been a number of stadiums that have been completely privately funded. I mean, if I talk about those 8 stadiums, several were privately funded.
Oh, wow.
None. I mean, again, the Las Vegas, the subsidy there for a stadium that is similar to what we're going to build was $750 million, and we're $1.26 billion. So the stadiums like this do generate a lot of wealth for those who own the team, and if you look at previous deals that we've done, for example with soccer, the owner is privately backing all the bonds.
Yep.
And now we're talking about the fairgrounds, where the city will end up having to back the bonds
for NASCAR and everything else that's coming in there. Do you think that your position in the private sector allows you to be a little bit stronger on the negotiation when it comes to things like this, when maybe even other private businesses are looking to come in? You have that experience of, hey, I've done this, I've been through this process, and when those big deals that are going to make the headlines for months and months and months, do you feel like you have an advantage in coming in there and knowing how to really kind of negotiate that in a strong position?
This is big stakes negotiations were a big piece of what I did in my former job. I think we did a dozen acquisitions or something of that magnitude that I led. Whether or not it's in my own personal life or whether or not it's in my business life, it is a little bit of I have experience on being on at least one side of the table.
All right. Do we want to get East Bank and then we'll get some food? Talk about food?
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the East Bank at all and the future of that? Or do you want to just go straight into Nashville food?
Look, I think the East Bank is super important. We need to be careful and thoughtful about how do we develop that. Back to having growth with a plan. This is a great opportunity for us to do this in a thoughtful way that addresses all of the issues of quality of life. What I don't know is what is the price tag for the infrastructure improvements that are required.
It's going to be a lot.
Because we're going to have to fund that
Yeah.
out of the general fund back to
fiscal management. Yeah.
fiscal management. I don't know what can be done from a development standpoint because, again, back to the stadium deal, it does require a set of that funding to come from the land in and around. Yeah, exactly. And so something like affordable housing is not going to generate a ton of sales tax. So we're just going to have to. I just don't feel that until I get into it that I have desires.
Yep.
But what you can actually do, I think I would need to see something where I understand the facts involved to tell you anything more informed than that.
Yeah. Right. Well, let's get into Nashville food. We over the last 10 years or so, there's been this rise in the culinary scene in Nashville. And now people are coming to Nashville to travel here for food. So what's one of your go-to spots in town?
Oh, goodness. One of the great things that has happened is we have become a tourist and hospitality industry is that we've been able to grow our food scene.
It's amazing.
It is amazing. This past weekend, I dined at Locust, which is a total blast.
Did you have the dumplings then?
I did have the dumplings.
Did you have that shave ice cream thing?
I ran out of room in my stomach for the shaved icing. I've had, it is amazing. But look, there is also so many other really interesting and differentiated places in Nashville that come not just from what has been supported by our hospitality industry, but from the diversity that is Nashville. I mean, back to why AllianceBernstein chose Nashville, this is an incredibly diverse place that welcomes everyone. And
156 languages spoken in Nashville.
All you have to do, you guys would know. All you have to do is get out of your neighborhood, and you're going to find some really interesting food. And I certainly, when I think about my own food experience, I want to be surprised and challenged with, that is not something that I would make at home, and that is taking me to a place that I haven't been to before.
Is that how you felt trying hot chicken for the first time?
I did. Now, I actually like chicken, so I can't say that I consistently order it hot.
There's a lot of, that's the one thing, we were talking about this yesterday. There's a lot of great, even fried chicken. I almost do. What do you think about the fried chicken scene here? Is there a better place?
In the country?
For fried chicken scene in the country?
I mean, we have so many riches of fried chicken, from the meats and threes and so forth that I mean, look, it is, might not be good for me, but I do occasionally indulge.
It is absolutely worth it. I have one more question, and then Stuart, if you have anything, I know nights and weekends now you're campaigning, but let's say if you're not campaigning or before that, what are your hobbies? What do you like to do? Where do you like to go? Outside of now, you retired in late 2020. What are some things that you enjoy outside of doing what you're doing right now?
Well, as you said, suddenly all of that has changed. But look, I love being outdoors. When I was a kid, those were the things that we did. I can remember we would pack up a camper and head out and hike up and down the Appalachian Trail is our vacation. And ever since then, I have been very much an outdoors person. So whether or not that is a hike around any of the amazing parks that we have in the city, which again are one of the things that make Nashville so special. I'm also an avid cyclist, so there are great places to cycle around Nashville.
The Natchez Trace Parkway.
That's actually the Trace is actually the first time I ever got to Nashville because I cycled the length of the Trace, and we terminated
from Natchez, Mississippi.
Yeah,
okay,
and we terminated here in Nashville, and I was like, whoa, this is a pretty special place.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did you have Loveless right after you did that ride?
I don't know if we did. I don't think we did that, but I think I will tell you that Station Inn might have been visited as well.
I've been down the Trace, up and down it, I think 4 times altogether. We just did it recently.
Yep.
And we went all the way down to Natchez, Mississippi.
Yep.
And it's so pretty.
But we had a motor in our
we
vehicle.
didn't do it on a bicycle. So I guess the other question I have for you is from just a strategic point. We talk about the parks a little bit more. I know that's one thing that separates Nashville from other cities is our park system.
It's a gift from
Percy Warner.
From the leadership. Well, it's Percy Warner. It's I mean, again, you know, we wouldn't have Beeman without Phil Bredesen.
Yep.
You know, Shelby Bottoms. I mean, you have such a unique situation that we have been able to create these parks, and we need to continue to nurture and grow our green space. I mean, I'm involved in a lot of nonprofits, one of which is Friends of one of the parks, because I just believe passionately that people need green space. It's important for our mental health. It's important for our physical health.
So, Jim, thank you so much for coming on to the show. Where could people follow you on social media or learn more about your campaign?
Everything's under Jim for Nashville. And in all forms of social media, from Twitter to Instagram to Facebook, or you can go online and look at our website.
And then also you can head over to NashvilleDailyPodcast.com to see this in the show notes, and you could learn more about Jim by visiting some of the forums that are happening over the next few months. I think there's probably like 35 of them or more.
Maybe next week.
Maybe next week.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you for listening to the Nashville Daily Podcast. If you want to learn more, head to NashvilleDailyPodcast.com.
You can also follow us on social media at explore.nash on Instagram, Nashville Daily Podcast on YouTube, and explore.nash on YouTube as well.
The Nashville Daily Podcast is an Explore LLC production, copyright 2023.